If you didn't know, I love Disney parks. I love theme parks in general. I used to go to theme parks a lot when I was a lot younger, and that is mainly because I grew up in California, near Southern California, so theme parks were very accessible for me and my family to attend. I especially love Disney theme parks. I've been to Disneyland and Disneyland's California Adventures far too many times, and honestly, I regret going so much. I should have really went anywhere else for vacation, but it's not like I hate that I went there all the time. I'm just saying I went there a little bit too much. That being said, I know quite a lot about this company. I know quite a lot about their theme parks, how the theme parks work, the Imagineers. I mean, I've researched this stuff, I've been there countless times, and recently I've been kind of getting a little bit nostalgic about my time back in California, and especially at these parks, because I haven't been to one of these theme parks, or any theme park really, in 4 whole years. And I know that might sound like a long time for some people, but also, some people can't go to the parks all the time because they're outrageously expensive. So I wanted to make some theme park videos here on the channel, which you'll probably see as it change somewhat in some recent amounts of time. In fact, I will be ranking all Disney rides and attractions at all 6 of the parks that I have attended, the 2 in California and the 4 in Florida. So today we're going to start with the original Disneyland park in Anaheim, California. Before we do begin, I do need to let you know that we will not be ranking Moments with Mr. Lincoln, the Columbia ship, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Davy Crockett Canoes, the Mark Twain Riverboat, and Splash Mountain, because Splash Mountain's gone and the rest of them I have not been on, and I have not been on the Tianu's Bayou Adventure. I mean, like I just said, I was at Disneyland in 2019. That was the last time I went there. So we have 30 experiences to rank. Let's get into it. Casey Jr. Circus Train. I'm pretty sure all of you saw this one coming at number 30, and look, I've been on it like maybe once or twice. It's okay. I think if I were 5 years old and making this list, it would have been a little bit higher, but it's just not that great for me as a 17-year-old, and I only went on it once when I was very small. I never got on it again. It's also in, if I remember correctly, tucked away in like a very weird part of Fantasyland. Like, it's a little bit hidden and hard to get to, and it's just, a railroad. It's not the Disneyland railroad, which is actually really good. It's just a very compressed ride, and when I rode it, I felt very claustrophobic in the ride itself, which leads me into number 29. Now, this ride is very rough for me because I become a bit claustrophobic throughout the entire experience, and to me, it's not very enjoyable. That, of course, is Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage. I wish this was a fun experience for me, but the one in California is just not my thing. I enjoy the one in Epcot like leaps and bounds more than the one in Disneyland, mainly because the one in Disneyland is very claustrophobic, and sure, the exterior and how the ride actually looks from the outside is really cool, but to me, it's just not fun or anything. I feel like if it was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, it'd probably rank about this place as well. But I don't know, if it was still the same as 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, then I might have had a brighter look on it, since, that was one of like the opening day attractions or one of the earlier attractions. But Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage is just not my cup of tea. Astro Orbiter is a very odd ride in my opinion. It's like a park icon, and if you didn't know, each park has its own icon. Disneyland has the castle, and California Adventure has the Ferris wheel, and then the other parks in Orlando have their own little icons. And this one is kind of like a park icon. There's, like more minuscule park icons at each of the parks. I'd say like Splash Mountain used to be a big park icon. Really, all the mountains at Disneyland were. And this one is a very tall ride. But to me, it's very dated. If you did not know, Tomorrowland has been very, very dated since its most recent refurbishment, which was like way back in the 90s. And I know I just said way back in the 90s and that was 30 years ago, but when you're talking about a land that's supposed to emulate the future, and all it's really gotten is a little bit of cleaning that here and there and a little bit of updates to the Star Wars stuff, it's really bad. They need to rehaul this entire land. And to me, this ride Astro Orbiter just does not look so hot. It looks almost like steampunk, a steampunk version of the future, which is cool, but I think it needs to be just more polished. Now, King Arthur's Carousel is very much so a fine enough ride. I believe it's aimed at a very small, younger audience. And I will acknowledge the fact that yes, this is a very, very important ride to Disney history as a whole. Walt himself was at an amusement park or some state fair, I cannot remember, with his children, and they rode on a carousel while he sat on a bench, and he imagined to himself, what if we made an environment where adults and kids could have fun together and ride good rides, not rickety little rides like the carousel that his two kids were on. And that, of course, birthed the idea of Disneyland, and that carousel that they were on was very dingy, while Disneyland's is very much so polished and everything. And it is cool having it as like somewhat of a centerpiece in Fantasyland, but to me, it's just okay to me. I'm not a huge carousel person. Now, Dumbo is a fine enough ride, but again, it's aimed at a really small audience. Part of the reason I don't rank these rides so highly is I don't have a lot of memories with these rides, and they're aimed at much, much smaller children. And Dumbo is definitely one of those that is fun. It is an iconic ride, but it's like Astro Orbiter, just a little bit more better because it's themed better than Astro Orbiter. And for me, it just a little bit of better theming, but basically the same exact ride is not going to do it for me. Now, unlike the past few rides, this one is worth getting into on my entire opinion on it. I've had a few good experiences on Mad Tea Party, but I will say a major deterrent of this ride is the fact that this line for some reason is very weirdly situated, and you know, there's no like fun queue. There's a few Disneyland rides, especially in Fantasyland, that do this, where they just don't like have good queue theming. It's literally just stands and you just like walk around the little stands, but it's a near 50-minute wait every single time I go on it. I will say I did get to go on it during the Halloween celebration, and it wasn't too packed, and it was really fun because they like do this like little Mad Tea Party thingy with some spooky lighting and everything, and that was very fun. But I mean, other than that, I don't recommend getting on this thing in the middle of the hottest days in California. If you could get it on it at night, then maybe it's fun, but like I said, 50 minutes for a ride that's like 2 minutes long and is not exactly the most memorable. Yeah, I'm not gonna get on it. Now, I understand that this ride is meant for 5-year-olds, but like I said, some of these rides I do have better memories with, and I always loved Chippendale. So Chippendale's Go Coaster, or actually I think it's Gadget's Go Coaster, is a very, very fun ride to me. Sure, it's only 40 seconds of a ride, but you know, it's somewhat impressive for kids like 5-year-olds and I guess up to maybe like 12-year-olds to get on. It's impressive what they could do for a thrill ride for little kids in a 40-second time frame, and it's pretty cool. The theming is interesting, and you know, Toontown is very zany, I guess, and so the somewhat unorchestrated and weird look of the ride, and just like kind of the props and the silly stuff that they throw there, is very, very likable and fits in quite well with this ride. Now, I very rarely get on the Main Street vehicles, but they are a very, very nice part of the atmosphere at Disney. And even if you've never even been on these things, I think you could rate them pretty high because you know what it's gonna be like. to an extent, and you realize that yes, these Main Street vehicles are very, very important to the atmosphere. When you walk down Main Street, you're seeing all the shops. It's like a little American town, and then you see these stagecoaches pulled by the horses, unless there's a parade going on. But in the beginning of the day at the park, or even a little bit of midday at the park, you're gonna see these things getting pulled, and it's a really fun ride to me. And you also get a really cool tour guide with these. Usually you get like some live person there to talk to you guys, and maybe if it's your first time at Disney, they'll give you some helpful insights. It's a very good thing, I think, to ride. If it's your first time at Disney, this is probably the first thing you should get on if you do not know what you're doing at the park, and you want an experience of a ride, and you can see that somebody will be able to help you there. I think this is a really good one, and it's just like a slow experience, and slow experiences at Disney, they need more of them. Now, I've had some very fond memories on Autopia, and I've had some very painfully boring memories on Autopia. Here's the biggest thing: the cars of the future is what it's supposed to be, and we do not have EV vehicles. I understand that EV vehicles are very, very probably hard to maintain and hard to put into this track, but I think that Autopia needs a massive increase or a massive rehaul where it's EV friendly. You put some more cool stuff in. I know they put like some astronauts and robots, I believe, in this ride recently. It is a little bit weird though, driving on the freeways and I guess highways of tomorrow when you're still in a gas powered car when it's 2024. But if they are to make that change, I think this thing could be boosted up a bit. Another bad thing about this ride is if you do not steer the vehicle and you just hit the gas, you are just going to be banging into the sides of the track because your car is stuck on a track. And it's fun as a little kid to drive this thing. Even when I was trying to be safe and calm on this thing, you would have to be very, very cautious without getting banged up on this ride, and that is something that really sucks. The biggest thing that sucks about this ride, however, is of course the wait and the queue and the fact that there's little to no shading. I mean, it's really, really frustrating. It is cool to smell, like the gasoline and the oil. It smells like a racetrack, maybe like NASCAR or something like that, which I think is really, really, really cool. But to me, I just don't exactly enjoy Autopia. Now, I understand that Snow White for a lot of people would be one of their more favorited rides, but for me, it's a very middle of the road ride. Yes, the storytelling is great, the queue is great, the wait time is always small, and I have not been on the more recent edition, but it still looks amazing, and I'm sure it is amazing. It looks great. Where it's, the Enchanted Wish and not like the spooky, scary adventures or whatever. It's a fun enough ride, and the AC's there, but then again, we have other rides just like Snow White in Fantasyland where they are meant to be like this, and they're just better in my opinion. I think Snow White, maybe if I got on the Enchanted Wish, I would boost this a big part up, but I did get on the scary one, and they did a little bit of refurbishments over the years, but nothing too dramatic and change, and it's just always kind of been there. Now, aside from the insane wait time similar to the Mad Tea Party of 50 to 70 minutes, I do think this ride is great. The ride does immerse you in the universe of Alice, and you do get some amazing effects on this ride. You get some really nice set design in the ride, and it even has you go outside in a part of the ride, which is very interesting, and it actually fits in pretty well, and it's pretty cool. Other than that, I will say the queue itself sucks because it's not well shaded. While some other rides are better shaded, there are parts of shade in this queue, but it's lacking a bit. Now, this is one of the rides that I wish I had rode a lot more. The Storybook Canals are a very unique one to Disneyland. They used to be more unique. because they used to only be at Disneyland, but I believe there's one overseas. And Storybook does tell you a lot of different Disney stories with these miniature models, and you have a live tour guide there. They're not supposed to be like the funniest person on earth, like the skippers on the Jungle Book, which we'll get to later, or sorry, Jungle Cruise, which we'll get to later, but it is fun and it's entertaining. It's interesting seeing these little mini models, and it's a good enough calm boat ride. Highly, highly recommend. Another great dark ride just like this is called Midway Mania, and that's at California Adventure, and it has more better things in my opinion, but Buzz Lightyear does have the benefit of animatronics. As somebody who does love Toy Story, especially Buzz himself and Zurg, it's a fun enough experience, but I do have to admit that the entire thing is run down. Yes, the queue is cool. Yes, it's cool to see Buzz when he operates well in the queue, but that's a big if he operates well in the queue. Most of the time he looks really, really bad, and the actual animatronics in the ride itself are okay. I don't like the screen projections on the face in this ride. I don't really like them in any ride, but especially this one. It's just not great. It looks like a product of the 90s, and in not a good way. I think it needs a little bit of an overhaul, or not an overhaul, but big refurbishments, like really big refurbishments, and then it could be a little bit better. Now, Pinocchio is one of my favorite Disney rides and films, especially in Fantasyland. I know that I've not mentioned two others in Fantasyland that I really, really enjoy more, but Pinocchio is a very interesting one. It's always a short wait. The queue isn't something like to ride home about too much, but it is cool enough. I think it's really nice because it is exclusive to Disneyland, and that's really, really cool. I enjoy the ride itself. It's nice, it's dark, it's eerie. The exterior building, like most exterior buildings at Fantasyland, is great. This one and Snow White, I believe, are like next to each other, and they just look really nice together. All of the Fantasyland exteriors really do look nice, but you know, it's a dark ride that I don't think is the greatest in Fantasyland, so it's only at 17. Now, this is an attraction that barely even qualifies for the list, in my opinion, but I would like to count it in, and that is the monorail. I think that the monorail was a really cool invention from Walt, and I understand the purpose of it. I think it's pretty cool, pretty futuristic. I think it can get some easy refurbishment and rehauls to be even more futuristic, and of course we've gotten more and more and more monorails over the years. I think more so, though, at Orlando. I mean, I know Disney isn't on the same monorail from like the 60s, or I believe it was the 60s or the 70s, or maybe the 80s when this thing launched, but the monorail itself is very, very cool. I do enjoy it. It has a great purpose of transporting you from place to place. I will say it is far, far more beneficial though at Epcot, Epcot really, and all of Disney World in my opinion. Disney World's monorail is more beneficial. Disneyland does have a beneficial monorail, but the purpose of the monorail, I think, at Disneyland is just like, hey, it's here, it's cool to ride on, and it is cool to ride on, but since Disney World's much bigger, I think that one's much more impressive because it can take you from like park to park, and it's very, very cool over there. But we're talking about Disneyland today, that's why it's at number 16. Really do enjoy it. Very cool vibes in that place. Now, coming in halfway, we have It's a Small World, and Disneyland has, like I said, some amazing slow rides, and this is definitely one of them. Now, I will say, if this was a contest for the greatest exteriors, I believe that It's a Small World would be number one, no questions asked. And when we rank the Magic Kingdom one at the start of next year, you will see how much that impacts my decision making. It's a Small World is a classic. It came from the World State Fair thing, the New York State Fair, or sorry, New York's World Fair. which is amazing, and I enjoy those. I've read a lot about that ride, and the fair itself and the technology that was brought back. And this is just truly a great, great ride. It's very calming, it's very cool. I don't exactly love all the commercial IP people in there, but it is cool to see them, like, Lilo and Stitch. But then sometimes I'm like, why do we have Woody and Jesse in here? And it's just like, I don't know, but it is still a very cool ride, and it takes you to all these little countries in the world, tries to depict them in cool enough ways, and that is cool. It does not, immerse you as much as, like Epcot does, of course, because Epcot's a whole land, but you know what, this ride is very fun. It's a very big ride at Disneyland. It's like a very big plot of land, so it is cool. But I will say that this could benefit from some refurbishment from time to time. I feel like sometimes the ride itself is just okay. I've never gotten to get on it though at Christmas time. I'm sure that's a very, very better experience and a very much more fun experience. And of course, I guess I could end on, the worst thing about the ride is the fact that the same exact song plays for the entire ride. If you know anything about Walt Disney, you will know that he loved trains. And the Disneyland Railroad is the first attraction or ride that you are actually greeted with at Disneyland. Before you can even get to like the little Main Street stagecoaches, this is the first one that you can enter. And the Disneyland Railroad is a great attraction. I wish I did get on this a lot more. And since there's a lot of different stops on this attraction, you, of course, use this as a mode of transportation to get from one area of the park to the other in a fun way, but you also get to see these dioramas, and you get this interesting narration track on the train. You get to hear the opening day speech at the New Orleans station with the Morse code playing in the background, because that's how they used to communicate on the railways back in the day before cell phones and email and everything. Like the Morse code as telegram would communicate stuff, so they put in the opening day ceremony speech that Walt gave in Morse code at that station. It's really cool. You get to smell a lot of different smells of the park on this thing. I mean, it's just a really fun ride. It is possibly the longest, it probably is the longest attraction and ride at Disneyland, and I highly encourage you someday to ride it all the way through from Main Street, loop it all the way around to Main Street. It is a very, very, very good experience that you should never miss out on. Now, this is one of my favorite rides and one of my favorite films out there. If you've never seen Roger Rabbit, but you've been on the ride, then you are missing out. The interesting thing is that the ride is very different than the movie, and the book is vastly different from both the ride and the movie. So if you're a fan of Roger Rabbit, you could watch the short films that are very different from the movie that is very different from the short films. You could get on the ride, like all the different types of media for Roger Rabbit, the book, the ride, the movie, the short films, very, very different. So you have a lot of modes to experience Roger Rabbit, and I think that's really cool. Now, the ride itself is an interesting one. I will say it is a very, very slow moving line for some unknown reason to me. The exterior queue is really cool, but the interior queue is one of the greater, possibly top 3 queues at Disneyland, in my opinion. It immerses you right in Toontown, like full on immerses you into Toontown and the Toon World that is depicted in that film and in that book. And it's really just cool. It's a really special one to me. I always loved this ride. I really, really did. It's cool that you get to spin around too in the go-kart. It's just really fun. Now, I understand that many people will say this is the greatest ride out there and that it is the greatest thing to ever exist, but I personally like this ride a lot, but I do not love Peter Pan's Flight. Now, I think that the reason this is that Peter Pan is one of the more overrated rides at the parks, and I think it is the fact that this wait is so tremendously long diminishes this ride in so many ways. Now, this is a big thing that I have with all the Fantasyland rides. This one is so consistently at 60 to 80, maybe even 90 minutes of a wait time, and I always don't understand why. I think it's because of the slow moving track. They're not on the Omni Mover system like they are in Florida, which really, really sucks. The queue itself, the exterior is cool. The mural that they have is cool. The ride itself is very fun. It's really great actually, especially with the refurbishments. That's why it's at number 12, but it's a really short ride, and I just do not think it should go any higher than 12. I will say my best memory on this ride was either riding it with all my cousins or when I went to the Halloween event and I found, I believe, a couple dressed as Dipper and Mabel Pines from Gravity Falls. That was really nice. Ever since I used to be a little boy, Winnie the Pooh has provided me with great comfort and memories. I used to watch the short films of Pooh multiple times, over and over and over. The ride itself here is a great little addition to Critter Country, and it is one of those rides that is hidden in the back of the park. And so usually the ride's wait is like 10 to 15 minutes, which is perfect. Now, Winnie the Pooh is tucked away back in Critter Country. It has a short wait, but it is a really cool ride. The queue is not something to ride home about, but I will say the actual ride itself is very fun. It's presented as like a storybook. It's really exciting with the animatronics. It's vibrant. It's colorful. I love the color palettes. It takes you through the short films. It plays all the songs. Like, it's a really nice ride. It's probably like 4 to 5 minutes long, and it's just really nice for a dark ride. Now, coming into the top 10, we have a ride that I did not ride at Disneyland, but instead at Disney World. The reason I'm putting it on this list, though, is it is the exact same ride at both parks. And that, of course, is the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Now, the biggest thing that sells this ride to a top 10 spot is the Falcon. Seeing the exterior of the Falcon is just insane. It's massive, it's to scale, it's beautiful, it's amazing. The ride itself, it's very fun, it's very enjoyable, it's impressive. When it came out, it was very, very impressive, very, very fun. The queue itself is pretty cool. It's not like the greatest thing ever. Before you get into the Falcon, it's not like the greatest queue known to man, but it is a fun one. It's exciting, where you get to ride on, or you get to like walk through like these just kind of like hallways and more themed environments. Like, you're getting into like a docking bay of sorts in Star Wars, and you get to see like a lot of different stuff there. The pre-show with Hondo Ohnaka is easily like the greatest part, with the like really lifelike animatronic there, which I absolutely love. And the Falcon queue, my goodness, when I stepped into the Falcon queue itself, like when I finally got on the Falcon, I cannot express the amount of joy that I had, the amount of gratitude. Like, it was such an incredible experience. I actually stepped into the Star Wars world, and Disney is known for their details, and I think this queue is actually quite detailed. And especially once you get into the Falcon, there's like the little things. There's obvious details, and then there's small things. And being able to sit at the table that, the guys did in A New Hope, where they played Sabacc, like, that was amazing. Getting the little card for your role, entering your cockpit, I mean, even the ride vehicle itself that you sit on, it's all so amazing. And it's just incredible. Like, it really is an insane experience to get on, and I love it to death. Mr. Toad is a great experience. It's one of my personal favorites. Sure, the short film itself is different than the ride in some regards, especially that ending in the ride is very different than the short film, but I grew up with the short film loving it. I grew up with this ride just loving it. I actually do think it's probably the best exterior or queue overall in Fantasyland. Of course, the greatest exterior is Small World, but this one is really, really good. You have an okay enough outdoor queue where you get to see Toad Manor, and you go through like these gardens. You get to see some, I believe, busts out there, kind of like the bus in the Haunted Mansion, except they're not haunted. Then you enter Toad Manor. You get to see Toad's little like stagecoach outside. It's really cool. You can take pictures in it. You go to Toad Manor, and guess what? At Toad Manor, you get to board on the stagecoach. There's a lot of cool details in Toad Manor, and the ride track itself and the ride itself is very high energy and zany for a dark ride. It's very chaotic. It's very fun. It is weird that you get sentenced to hell, but you know, it's an interesting weird quirk in the ride that I have learned to love and accept over time, and it's a really just fun ride. So this is a ride that I'm very split on. A part of me really does love this ride, and another part is annoyed by it. And that, of course, is Star Tours. The queue itself is fine. You know, most days you have to wait outside a little bit and then go to this alternate building where they just kind of play music from Star Wars, usually Star Wars theme, very loudly, and they like have some murals or like little electronic screens that make you seem like you're in a spaceship and you can look out at all the planets or whatever. And then you have the main queue where you have that massive like flight looking, like that airport looking, displaying the flights, which is cool enough. You have Admiral Akbar and his buddy up top as hidden little hidden guys at the very top, and then of course the main centerpiece that you see is C-3PO and R2 in the actual Star Tours vehicle, and that is really cool. However, the queue is very long because the wait is very long. They anticipated it quite well. It's very fleshed out queue. It's very cool. But I think I got on this ride a little bit too much, and a big problem I have with this ride is the fact that they will almost always play the exact same film that you've been on the last time. Like, they just play the same film. There's not a whole lot of variety in their films, and it kind of sucks. But it is a fun enough ride. Now, I really do love the Jungle Cruise. To me, it's a very underrated ride, and the film for the ride itself was actually better than I thought it was going to be. It was very entertaining. It was cool. I hope that a lot of people then went on the ride because this was a very fun ride to be on. It's a cool film, and I think the biggest part about this is, of course, the skippers. The animatronics with the animals is really great too. But it's just such an amazing ride. The props, you know, in the ride are great, like the little set designs and everything. The environment itself at Disneyland is amazing for this ride in Adventureland. I mean, you have the Tiki Room, and then you have like some other stuff around this, and you have more Jungle Cruise themed stuff, and you have Indy right next to it, which the skippers make jokes about all the time, about this massive temple. And it's just a really fun ride. I really do enjoy it. I wish I got on it a lot more, but man, it's a little bit of a slower moving ride, but it's just so much fun to get on this ride vehicle, on this boat, and ride the ride, and just, you don't feel like you're in the Amazon. It's really great. Now, I have to say, yes, Space Mountain is a classic. I do not place it in the top 5 though, because I think at Disneyland it is not that great. There's a lot of different reasons for this. I will say that firstly, when I used to get on it, it was Space Mountain, and then they changed it to Hyperspace Mountain. And a big thing about this ride, especially at Disneyland, it relies so heavily on screens. The screens itself, very big thing. It's a very smooth coaster, which is fun, but the screens like really want to portray the entire vibe and feeling of you're in space, and you can see the constellations and the beautiful pretty stars of the Milky Way, and that's cool and all, but I like the Space Mountain at Disney World where it's pitch black. The actual queue is very weird to me, like a lot of empty space. And then once you actually get into the show building queue, then you're finally in like a cooler, immersive place. But I feel like that exterior part before you get into like the more shaded areas and the indoor, it really sucks to me. However, I will say the exiting queue is phenomenal. Now, in my opinion, this is the most thrilling ride at Disneyland. Mainly, it is due to the dark caves, the very rickety track, and the fact that this ride was like the first steel coaster that they had made. It's very, very, very rough on you, but that adds to the fun, and it adds to the theming of the bobsleds in the Matterhorn. You have the terrifying Yeti. You go pretty fast for a Disney ride, and it's really fun. You even get a little splash of water at the end, and it's unique to Disneyland. Disney World has their own version of this, which is cool and all, but Disneyland itself with the Matterhorn, great. Now the queue, not great, or nothing to write home about really there. Now this to me is the Haunted Mansion. Sure, the Haunted Mansion in Florida actually looks more gothic and eerie and creepy, and from the exterior does look better, but in my opinion, the OG is the best. It's the first one, it's the most iconic exterior. The interior is amazing. The ride itself is far better at Disneyland in my opinion. The entire like graveyard area outside is really nice with the dead pets. It's very, very interesting and immerses you in this haunted experience. Then you get the show where you have the welcome foolish mortals, and you drop down and then you get on the ride, and the track itself, you know, very smooth track, the Omni Mover system. It's very cold and crisp in there, and I really just love it. I really do love it. Now, something I did not include on this, and I forgot to, is Haunted Mansion Holiday. And if this was 31 rides and we were adding that in, I think that would go in the top 15, probably at spot 11 to be honest. I really do love The Nightmare Before Christmas, but the biggest thing that I have with that ride is not that it sucks, because it's incredible. I love Haunted Mansion Holiday a lot, but it takes a lot of time away from Haunted Mansion itself, which I feel is not necessary and not good. But I do love seeing Jack, Sally, Zero, Oogie Boogie, the songs that they play. I really love it. But then again, it's like, come on guys. Why do we need Haunted Mansion or Holiday from July to like early January? Like, just why? Alright, number 3 is my go-to ride. It is possibly the greatest ride, depending on who you ask. That is Big Thunder Mountain. Big Thunder Mountain is amazing because of the thrill and the joy that you experience here. And it's incredible. The storytelling is interesting enough. It's fun enough. The queue is okay at Disneyland. I don't think it's the absolute greatest, but it's fun enough. And to me, I think it's really fun to ride this at night. Like, the nighttime experience is truly something else. It's actually transforming the ride into something just so completely different. I highly recommend that for everybody to get on. One of my favorite film series of all time is Indiana Jones. I do love all 5 of the films, even though I think that Temple of Doom is the weakest. Yes, I know I said that. I still do love parts of it. Even though Crystal Skull was overhated, I still love the majority of that. And even though Dial of Destiny was very, very unbalanced in the reception, I love parts of that too. Like, I really do love all 5 films. I don't think they're all perfect, of course, but I do love all 5 films. And I love Indy as a character. I love Sala. I love his father, you know. And this ride tells such an immersive and original story with an amazing thrill ride itself. I mean, this ride, from the queue itself, you're entering the forest, you enter the temple, you see the Jeep outside, you know, then each and every single part of the queue, you're like walking through a story, and you go to the pre-show with Sala there, and it's just so cool. You go to the Temple of Mara, and then you finally load up into your Jeep for the expedition, and you see Indy trying to block out the spirits and whatever, and then you're like, cool, we are finally in some Indiana Jones mayhem. You go into the supernatural side of Indiana Jones, and each and every single scene in the ride or every single room really in the ride is like a new movie scene, and it takes you through the entire experience of Indiana Jones, like you're living in Indiana Jones's life. It's really, really fun. I absolutely love these films. I absolutely love this ride. I honestly could make the case for this being the number one, but the number one spot is obvious. Another great film series, one that I love the first 4 films, and the 5th film is a disgrace to the franchise in my opinion, but anybody that knows me personally, or knows a park fan, or knows the Disney parks, knows that this is going to be the number one at Disneyland, and that's Pirates. Pirates of the Caribbean is the greatest Disney ride in my opinion. The fast-moving line is benefited greatly to the fast-moving boats. However, I will say a big problem with this ride, because not everything is perfect at Disneyland, is of course the fact that the boats get backed up. In some of the show scenes, you just kind of sit there waiting for a boat to get over a lift hill, which kind of sucks. But most of the time, it's really, really good going. The queue itself is okay, you know, the exterior queue is okay. You go into this New Orleans type manor, and you see the parrot. Once you get inside, you see the illustrations on the wall of Jack Sparrow, Barbossa, and some of the other pirates. And you see the talking parrot. You go in and you're hearing the yo-ho, yo-ho song. And then you make it to Lafitte's Landing, the boarding dock. You get in your boat, you go off into the bayou, and guess what? You get to see the Blue Bayou restaurant because you're in Blue Bayou. That also does add to the experience of the ride. You could make the argument that it's a part of the queue because you're in the part of the ride that's just like immersed in the queue, and you're not turning the wall to talk to the pirate head on the wall. You know, you're not at that part yet. You just have this beautiful little restaurant. People are eating candlelight dinners there. They're not actually very distracting, and I just love the environment there, the smells. The entire ride itself is very long and very slow moving, which is very, very fun and relaxing. The drops are, of course, a great, great thrill, but I mean, this is the greatest Disney ride in my opinion, and it's just so calm. The California Adventures is next, and I hope that you enjoyed today. Subscribe if you want to see more of this series and further things about theme parks and films. With that being said, peace out, have a great day, see you all in the next.